All right, y'all. So, it's time for us to get into these housewives. So, something is off with Kelli in her relationship. I don't know if anybody else is picking up on this. Now, granted, I have to say, I don't know anything about this woman. Just to make full disclaimers out here. I'm not trying to put anything out there. I don't know about y'all, but Kelli's relationship feels very Big Papa-ish. Okay? This man is giving expensive gifts. He doesn't want to be seen on TV. And he's going by an alias, like how Big Papa was. Now, granted, some people are private people, but I just find this relationship to be a little suspect. Here's my thing. It's one thing for a man to wine and dine you, and I might even understand some jewelry, but $70,000 worth of veneers? And then she also said in her confessional, well, let me just get to know him first before I put him out there. What do you mean get to know? What do you mean you're still getting to know him, but yet he's spending $70,000 on veneers? That just sounds real odd to me. Who does that? Especially on somebody they're not married to or haven't been with for a very long time. I just find it a little interesting that she calls Porsha a gold digger, and now you're with this man and paying $70,000 worth of veneers. I hate to say this, but it sounds very married man-ish. Okay, it really does. And I find that interesting with the timing of Porsha saying what she's saying about this alleged pastor. And then here's my other thing. Let's talk about priorities, right? Here you all on TV talking about you're in financial distress. You had to send your daughter in an Uber X. Not that that's the most terrible thing in the world, but whatever. Apparently to her, that's a different status, okay? You're talking about filing for bankruptcy, but meanwhile, you're accepting a gift for $70,000 when your livelihood is at stake. Granted, maybe some men feel better about giving you a gift as opposed to money, but call me crazy, but I think I would have had to convince him to add to my livelihood in some regard. I don't know if $70,000 of veneers is the biggest priority. It's okay for a man to want to give you gifts, but personally, I think I'll be uncomfortable with someone wanting to spend that kind of money on me, especially if we haven't been together for a very long time. $70,000 is a lot of money. And I feel like $70,000 comes with expectations. So the bigger question is, what is this man expecting in return for this money? And then also, let's talk about how Kelli was doing too much at the beginning of the episode. She's talking about, like, I ain't the one. And you talk about how Porsha ain't gonna have her finger in her face. Let's be clear. You started this argument, right? You can't throw rocks and then hide your hands. At the end of the day, Porsha was minding her business and having a conversation with Kay. You the one that felt the need to jump in, throw in your little 2 cents, talking about how she sleep with every Nigerian in Atlanta. You put yourself in that argument. So you can't get mad when Porsha turns around and starts putting her finger in her face. And then what do? You put your glass in her face. And then somehow you're surprised that things escalate. It's like, girl, you started that. So we got to take some accountability. And I appreciate that she's having a hard time, but they ain't got nothing to do with nobody else. You came there with a chip on your shoulder and you wanted to start a fight with Porsha, so you did. It's because, call me crazy, but if you sit around contemplating bankruptcy, then you only have time to be worrying about who Porsha dealing with, okay? You got other priorities. So there's that. And then I also say that the relationship between her and Shamea is a little bit cringy. I'm all about friends goofing off, having a good time or whatever. It's one thing to maybe playfully sit in your friend's lap for a moment, but I don't know if there's a universe where I'm straddling my friend. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, girl, go sit down somewhere. I mean, if they like it, I love it. So there's that. And then they show Shamea with her family. I have to say, in that scene when Shamea went to go see her family, baby, her makeup was just on point. That makeup was tea, okay? And they were talking about her having a baby. And her mama trying to tell her, look, we can't do beyond what's in God's will. And I feel the same way. Now, granted, sometimes the devil is a lie. But if you're constantly having rejections, what the embryo not taking, maybe it's a sign that maybe you shouldn't have another baby. And personally, they're already having challenges with the youngest child, right? I feel like there could be a challenge adding a new baby into the mix on top of caring for a sick child already. So I think that is something that should be considered. I think her mom's just trying to tell her, look, sometimes we just got to face the reality. And if you really want this child that bad, at some point you may have to just consider adopting and then just calling it a day. Sometimes we don't always get what we want out of life, and we just have to roll with what we got. And let's get to Shamea versus Angela. And in this case, I think I have to side with Shamea because there's just things about Angela that just doesn't make sense, okay? You're still mad with Shamea. Now, granted, Angela did say online that there were some other things that Shamea said that was not shown on camera. So we actually don't know the full extent of their beef. In my humblest opinion, I don't think there's anything worse than somebody saying, I would F your husband. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's the most unforgivable thing. But somehow Angela is able to move past that and hang out with Porsha, even talking about, oh, girl, you're such a key, ha, ha, ha. But even though, granted, she still makes her shady comments about Porsha in her confessional, so she's also a little fake, too. But it's like, I don't understand how you're able to move on with Porsha like ain't nothing going on. You had all this energy towards Phaedra because you swore up and down Phaedra trying to set you up, even though that whole thing didn't make no daggone sense either. But you still mad with Shamea for whatever reason. Like, granted, Shamea was wrong for laughing. Because as a married woman, I do feel like Shamea should have checked Porsha when Porsha was making those type of jokes. Because my thing is like that if she's bold enough to say that in front of you and knowing you're married, then who's to say what she'll do where your relationship is concerned? There are some boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. And then sometimes you just got to check your friend. And then also, I agree with Shamea. When they were in Dallas, Angela was kind of picking on Shamea. Because Shamea wasn't doing anything. And she kept saying, well, you know something. Look at your face. I mean, granted, she didn't know, but it wasn't her place to tell it, right? Because that was K. Michelle's issue. So if K. Michelle wanted to talk about it, she got to do it. It wasn't Shamea's place to bring it back to the group. Like, Angela got to realize, like, not everybody is messy like she is. So I do feel like, Angela was pushing Shamea a little. So I don't know. Like, I realize this is a show and they have to pretend like they want to work things out and all that. But sometimes you just got to realize when people are not for you. And I do think that these two just may not be friends. And I think we just got to live with that. Okay? And then Pinky met up with Angela and Cynthia, and they were talking about how Angela and Shamea just needed to have a sit down. And one thing I could say that I like about Pinky seems to be objective. She seems to be very fair. She doesn't have a problem calling things out in a respectful manner. Like, even in that case, like, she did say, hey, no offense, I know we cool, but you do have a tendency to instigate things. And she tried to let Angela see that. And she's right. Angela does, instigate a lot of stuff. So I do like that Pinky doesn't have a problem holding people's feet to the fire. Okay, and even in that little segment they showed of her talking with Porsha, and she was trying to tell Porsha, it can't always just be on your time. With their whole discussion with K. Michelle and Porsha, so you kind of need somebody that is fair in the group. Okay, K. Michelle and Porsha sitting down to hash out their differences. And I agree with Porsha. If you have an issue, it's just more upfront to just talk about it, right? Like back when K. Michelle had an issue with Porsha about the whole miscarriage comment. Granted, she ran it about on Twitter because that's what she does, but she did eventually have lunch with her, explain to her what her problems were. But I just feel like Kay kind of all over the place because first it was Porsha, Phaedra, and Drew plotting. But now all of a sudden, Drew is the main mastermind behind all of this. It's just like, why? Now, granted, we do need to remember that when K. Michelle first came on the show, Drew was shady in her confessional. Because I remember Drew was saying, oh, that she's still single, whatever. She was being shady about it. It's almost like she was threatened by the fact that K. Michelle was joining the show because K. Michelle's an actual singer. Like, she actually has a music career as opposed to Drew's, which Drew's is still trying to get hers off the ground. So it did feel like, if we're going to be honest, it did feel like Drew was a little bit threatened by her in the beginning in that confessional. But is that enough evidence to say that Drew is setting her up in some kind of way? Here's my thing. If somebody's going to go out of their way to set you up and expose you, so to speak, wouldn't it be something more meaningful? Because all we got right now is her vagina stinking. And then she even made a comment this time around talking about how she got long toes. It's like, girl, what? And once again, you're the one spilling the tea. Like, who's looking at your toes? Like, girl, expose you about long toes? We going through all of that for that? My thing is, if somebody gonna really go there, they gonna go there about something meaningful. So it's a lot of nonsense going on there. And I don't know who's telling her what. And if we being fair, it ain't nobody but production. Production the only one putting this stuff in her ear. But I think we got to let this go until she had more proof. Now, granted, I still stand behind the fact that Porsha making a comment about the oyster stinking still felt a little suspect to me. But outside of that, we don't have a whole lot of evidence to keep running with this whole thing. And I know doggone well we're not going to keep talking about black because don't nobody even want to hear about it. So let's talk about Drew and her team for a second. Is it just me or did we feel like Drew was auditioning for her own spinoff? It was giving very much Candy coded click vibes, right? Because, we've all seen Candy with her team and so forth. I have to say they are a bit entertaining. There's clearly a lot beneath the surface that has to be addressed. But I guess my issue with her, you're the head of this team. And I know you're busy, but you do have to check in with your team. I feel like a lot of times people will hire a team and just kind of let them do whatever without checking in. I mean, I think if anything, it doesn't sound like they've been having regular meetings, right? Because if you're having regular meetings, checking in with your team, you can kind of address issues as they come about. You know what I mean? I get it, she's busy, but it's still your team. And at the end of the day, your team represents you. So you still got to get ahead of it. And it's good that she has a manager coming in. So the manager will help take over some of the reins. But I think people need to realize that doesn't substitute your own presence. Because at the end of the day, this is your brand. So you still need to be present to deal with your team at times. And if we're being honest, it sounds like there have been people who should have been fired by now. Because, I mean, and in no way should we accept that type of behavior where people are, like, getting into altercations and putting hands on each other or anything of that sort. So I think she needs to get to the bottom of who's the problem child. I think we have our suspicions. I could be interested in watching that part, right? Not just because it's drama, because it can show her more into her business. And then I guess the other question is, do you really need these many people on your team? Because it seems like she had 2 assistants. Now, the production counted 20 people. She may want to start downsizing because some of those people are sharing duplicative roles. And I know sometimes it's hard when you're loyal to people and you feel like people have been there for you or for whatever reason you want to keep them around, so it's hard to let them go. But at the end of the day, it's business. So, but I think I could be here for at least, even if it's not a full spinoff, because to be fair, they haven't really proven themselves to that degree to warrant a spinoff. But we can get like maybe 10 minutes an episode, right? Just to kind of fill it out. And I think she's smart for putting them in the camera, because she probably knows that. She probably knows her team is entertaining, probably has more drama than the rest of the cast. So she said, hey, let my team do my work for me so we can secure our checks. And you know what? I'm not even mad at that. Go ahead, Drew. Get that money, baby. So let's talk about the trailer for the rest of the season. I mean, it seems like we're finally going to get a showdown again between Porsha and Shamea, which might be long overdue, but they're really going to get into the mama of it all. Because here come Porsha talking about some, you and your mama ain't nothing but low down, dirty snakes. I'm like, ooh, you really want to go in about her mama? In front of everybody? You know what? Like, the way I see it, bump Porsha and Shamea, we need to figure out what happened with their mamas. I think that's the real tea right there. Because something messy happened. I know they keep talking about the daycare, how she bought this Diane's daycare from behind her, but it's more to it than that. They too mad about it. Yeah, I think that was it for this episode. I guess they kind of need a calm episode compared to all the nonsense that's been going on these last few episodes. So, at any rate, I guess we'll have to check in to see what happens next week. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.